The envelope was thin, ordinary. Tyler Bradshaw tore it open with the same hand that had struck me 24 hours earlier, still smiling that confident smile. He expected a check for $35,000. What he pulled out instead turned his face the color of old paper. 6 sheets. No money. Just the end of his entire world. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Before we begin, I would love it if you could hit that like button and subscribe to stay connected with more stories like this one. Drop a comment below and tell me where you are tuning in from. I always enjoy hearing from you. Just a quick note. While this story weaves in some fictional elements for depth and insight, the lessons within are drawn from life's complexities. Any similarity to actual names or places is coincidental, but the message I am sharing carries weight. The afternoon light came through the front window of my bookshop in long amber bands, catching the dust motes that always drifted between the shelves. March in Savannah had a way of being gentle one moment and sharp the next. Today it was somewhere in between. Warm enough to leave the door propped open, cool enough that the old radiator in the corner still clicked and hissed every few minutes like a tired animal settling into sleep. I was sorting through a box of estate sale acquisitions in the back room. Nothing remarkable. A few mid-century paperbacks with cracked spines, a water-damaged atlas, 3 copies of novels nobody remembered anymore. The work was quiet and familiar, the kind of task that let my mind wander without getting lost. 38 years I had spent in this shop. 38 years of dust and paper, and the particular silence that only exists between book covers. Marion used to say the shop smelled like patience. Like someone had bottled all the waiting in the world and shelved it alphabetically. She had a way of saying things like that, making the ordinary sound like poetry. 2 years since the Alzheimer's took the last of her, and I still caught myself turning toward the front counter expecting to see her there. Reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, pencil tucked behind her ear. Her collection was still here. The shelf behind the register where she kept her personal favorites. First editions mostly. A signed Flannery O'Connor, a pristine To Kill a Mockingbird from 1960, and her pride, a first printing of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from 1962. She had found it at an estate sale in Tybee Island the summer we got engaged. Paid $14 for it. It was worth somewhere north of $12,000 now. But that was never the point. The point was the finding. The story of the finding. I set down the atlas and wiped my hands on my apron. The shop was empty. Tuesdays usually were. Through the front window, I could see Willow Street settling into its late afternoon routine. A woman walking a golden retriever, the florist across the street bringing in her sidewalk displays. The oak trees casting long shadows across the cobblestones, their branches heavy with Spanish moss that swayed in a breeze I could not feel inside. My phone sat on the counter, silent. It had been silent for most of the day, which was how I preferred it. At 70, I had made peace with quiet, had learned to fill it with work instead of worry. The shop kept me busy enough. Not profitable exactly, not anymore, but busy. And in Savannah, where time moved like honey off a spoon, busy was enough. The bell above the door chimed. I looked up from the box expecting a customer. Maybe Mrs. Patterson coming for her Thursday mystery, 2 days early. Or one of the college students from the Savannah College of Art and Design looking for cheap vintage paperbacks to decorate their apartments. It was neither. Tyler Bradshaw stood in my doorway with his hands shoved into the pockets of a leather jacket I knew he could not afford. His jaw was set in that way I had come to recognize over the past 4 years. The expression of a man who had already written the script for a conversation and expected everyone else to follow it. My son-in-law. Natalie's husband. The man who had charmed my daughter at a gallery opening and proposed within 6 months. The man who called himself a financial consultant and drove a car that cost more than my annual revenue. The man I had lent money to twice before and never seen a cent returned. He did not wait for me to greet him. Just stepped inside, letting the door swing shut behind him, cutting off the street noise and the breeze, and everything that had made the afternoon feel ordinary. The formalities lasted perhaps 20 seconds. No mention of Natalie. No questions about my health, or the shop, or whether I had eaten lunch. He paced between the shelves like the space was too small for him, running his fingers along the spines of books I knew he had never read. Then he stopped, turned to face me, and I saw it in his eyes before he even opened his mouth. That hunger, that absolute certainty that the world owed him something, and I was the one holding it back. $35,000. That is what he needed. Not wanted. Needed. His consulting firm was hemorrhaging clients. There were debts. Investors pulling out. If he did not come up with the money by Friday, everything would collapse. And Natalie, my daughter, would lose everything too. I had heard this speech before. Smaller numbers, different disasters. 5,000 for an unexpected tax bill that turned out to be a gambling debt. 10,000 for a business expansion that never materialized. I had helped twice. The money vanished. Like smoke. The promises stayed, thin and weightless. This time I said no. The envelope was thin. Ordinary. Tyler Bradshaw tore it open with the same hand that had struck me 24 hours earlier. Still smiling that confident smile. He expected a check for $35,000. What he pulled out instead turned his face the color of old paper. 6 sheets. No money. Just the end of his entire world. Hello everyone, welcome back. Before we begin, I would love it if you could hit that like button and subscribe to stay connected with more stories like this one. Drop a comment below and tell me where you are tuning in from. I always enjoy hearing from you. Just a quick note. While this story weaves in some fictional elements for depth and insight, the lessons within are drawn from life's complexities. Any similarity to actual names or places is coincidental, but the message I am sharing carries weight. The afternoon light came through the front window of my bookshop in long amber bands, catching the dust motes that always drifted between the shelves. March in Savannah had a way of being gentle one moment and sharp the next. Today it was somewhere in between. Warm enough to leave the door propped open, cool enough that the old radiator in the corner still clicked and hissed every few minutes like a tired animal settling into sleep. I was sorting through a box of estate sale acquisitions in the back room. Nothing remarkable. A few mid-century paperbacks with cracked spines, a water-damaged atlas. 3 copies of novels nobody remembered anymore. The work was quiet and familiar. The kind of task that let my mind wander without getting lost. 38 years I had spent in this shop. 38 years of dust and paper and the particular silence that only exists between book covers. Marion used to say the shop smelled like patience. Like someone had bottled all the waiting in the world and shelved it alphabetically. She had a way of saying things like that, making the ordinary sound like poetry. 2 years since the Alzheimer's took the last of her, and I still caught myself turning toward the front counter, expecting to see her there. Reading glasses pushed up on her forehead, pencil tucked behind her ear. Her collection was still here, the shelf behind the register where she kept her personal favorites, first editions mostly, a signed Flannery O'Connor, a pristine To Kill a Mockingbird from 1960, and her pride, a first printing of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest from 1962. She had found it at an estate sale in Tybee Island the summer we got engaged. Paid $14 for it. It was worth somewhere north of $12,000 now. But that was never the point. The point was the finding. The story of the finding. I set down the atlas and wiped my hands on my apron. The shop was empty. Tuesdays usually were. Through the front window, I could see Willow Street settling into its late afternoon routine. A woman walking a golden retriever. The florist across the street bringing in her sidewalk displays. The oak trees casting long shadows across the cobblestones, their branches heavy with Spanish moss that swayed in a breeze I could not feel inside. My phone sat on the counter. Silent. It had been silent for most of the day, which was how I preferred it. At 70, I had made peace with quiet, had learned to fill it with work instead of worry. The shop kept me busy enough. Not profitable, exactly, not anymore. But busy. And in Savannah, where time moved like honey off a spoon, Busy was enough. The bell above the door chimed. I looked up from the box, expecting a customer. Maybe Mrs. Patterson coming for her Thursday mystery. 2 days early. Or one of the college students from the Savannah College of Art and Design looking for cheap vintage paperbacks to decorate their apartments. It was neither. Tyler Bradshaw stood in my doorway with his hands shoved into the pockets of a leather jacket I knew he could not afford. His jaw was set in that way I had come to recognize over the past 4 years. The expression of a man who had already written the script for a conversation and expected everyone else to follow it. My son-in-law, Natalie's husband. The man who had charmed my daughter at a gallery opening and proposed within 6 months. The man who called himself a financial consultant and drove a car that cost more than my annual revenue. The man I had lent money to twice before and never seen a cent returned. He did not wait for me to greet him. Just stepped inside, letting the door swing shut behind him, cutting off the street noise and the breeze and everything that had made the afternoon feel ordinary. The formalities lasted perhaps 20 seconds. No mention of Natalie. No questions about my health or the shop or whether I had eaten lunch. He paced between the shelves like the space was too small for him, running his fingers along the spines of books I knew he had never read. Then he stopped, turned to face me, and I saw it in his eyes, before he even opened his mouth. That hunger, that absolute certainty that the world owed him something, and I was the one holding it back. $35,000. That is what he needed. Not wanted. Needed. His consulting firm was hemorrhaging clients. There were debts, investors pulling out. If he did not come up with the money by Friday, everything would collapse. And Natalie, my daughter, would lose everything too. I had heard this speech before. Smaller numbers, different disasters. $5,000 for an unexpected tax bill that turned out to be a gambling debt. $10,000 for a business expansion that never materialized. I had helped twice. The money vanished like smoke. The promises stayed. Thin and weightless. This time I said no. The word hung between us like smoke from a blown-out candle. No. 2 letters. 1 syllable. The smallest word in the English language that could change everything. Tyler stopped pacing. His fingers, which had been trailing absently along a row of Hemingway paperbacks, went still. I watched his face cycle through expressions, the way a slot machine cycles through symbols. Disbelief first, then calculation, then something darker. Something I did not want to name but recognized the way you recognize the smell of a storm before the first drop falls. He turned to face me fully. The leather jacket creaked. "You do not understand," he said. His voice had dropped half an octave. "This is not optional, Eugene. This is not me asking for a favor. Natalie and I will lose everything. The apartment, the car, her credit. Everything we have built together disappears by Friday if I do not come up with this money." I set down the book I had been holding. A water-damaged copy of East of Eden. Placed it gently on the counter between us, like a barrier. Though it was no barrier at all. I have given you money twice, Tyler. $15,000 over 4 years. You told me both times it would come back. It never did. I am not giving you $35,000. His jaw tightened. The muscles along his neck corded. He took a step toward me, and I felt the space between us shrink in a way that had nothing to do with physical distance. "This is about family," he said. "About loyalty. About what a father does for his daughter. You are sitting here in this dusty shop surrounded by dead paper while your daughter's life falls apart. And you are telling me no? I am telling you no." He stepped closer. I could smell his cologne now. Something sharp and expensive that did not belong in a room full of old books. His voice got louder and I became aware, suddenly, of movement at the edge of my vision. The front door. The bell had not chimed, which meant someone had been standing there already, holding it open, listening. Natalie, my daughter, stood in the doorway, with one hand gripping the frame. She wore a pale blue cardigan I recognized as Marion's. Her face was expressionless, in a way that frightened me more than Tyler's anger. Blank. Waiting. Like she already knew how this would end and had made her peace with it. I looked at her. Searched her face for something. Support, maybe. Or at least acknowledgement that what her husband was asking, what he was doing, was wrong. That showing up unannounced and demanding $35,000 from a 70-year-old man in his own shop was not how family worked. She did not move. Did not speak. Just stood there with Marion's cardigan wrapped around her shoulders and her eyes fixed on some middle distance between Tyler and me, as if she could make herself invisible by refusing to engage. That is when Tyler's hand came up. It was not theatrical. Not the kind of sweeping cinematic gesture you see in films where someone winds up and puts their whole body into the motion. It was quick, efficient, almost casual. The back of his hand connected with my cheek in a sound that cracked through the silence of the shop like a book dropped from a high shelf. My head snapped to the right. I tasted copper. My hip bumped the counter behind me and my hand shot out for balance, catching the edge of the register. The impact traveled through the shelves. I felt it more than saw it. A vibration, running through 40 years of carefully organized inventory. And then, the sound. A soft thud followed by the whisper of pages fanning open. Marion's shelf. Behind the register, I turned, my cheek throbbing, and saw it on the floor. The 1962 first printing. One flew over the cuckoo's nest. It had slid from its place on the shelf and landed face down on the hardwood, its spine splayed open like a broken wing. The front cover had caught the corner of the bottom shelf on the way down. A tear ran diagonally across the dust jacket. 3 inches long, cutting through Ken Kesey's name like a wound. For a moment, none of us moved. The shop was silent except for the radiators clicking and the distant sound of traffic on Willow Street. The world outside continued, as if nothing had happened, as if everything had not just shifted on its axis. Then Tyler spoke. Low. Close. His breath warm against my ear. Think about what I said. I will come back Friday for the money. And next time, do not make me ask twice. He straightened his jacket, turned, walked past Natalie without touching her, without looking at her. The bell chimed as he pushed through the door and disappeared onto the sidewalk, his expensive shoes clicking against the cobblestones. I looked at my daughter. She looked at me. Our eyes met for perhaps 2 seconds. Hers wide and glassy. Mine, I imagine. Something wild. Something broken. And then she turned, followed him out. The bell chimed again, softer this time, almost apologetic. The door swung shut. I stood alone in my bookshop with my cheek burning and my hands shaking and Marion's favorite book torn open on the floor. I knelt down slowly. My knees protested. I picked up the book with both hands, cradling it the way you would cradle something alive and injured. The tear in the dust jacket gaped at me. Irreparable without professional restoration. $12,000 in value, gone in an instant. But that was not what made my hands tremble. It was hers. The last piece of her that still felt alive in this shop. The book she found the summer everything began for us. And now it lay damaged in my hands because a man I never wanted in my family had decided that my face was worth less than $35,000. My phone began to buzz in my pocket. Once. Twice. 3 times, in rapid succession. I did not answer. Not yet. I just stood there in the fading afternoon light, holding Marion's broken book, listening to the phone vibrate against my thigh. Outside, a dog barked. A car passed. The florist locked her door for the evening. Normal sounds. A normal Tuesday on Willow Street. Except nothing was normal anymore. Something had shifted. I could feel it settling into my chest, like sediment in still water. Not anger. Not yet. Not quite. Just the slow, creeping certainty that the man who had just walked out of my shop was not going to stop, that Friday was coming. That the phone in my pocket was only the beginning. And somewhere beneath the shock and the throb in my jaw and the sick feeling behind my ribs, a different kind of cold began to take root. By midnight, my phone had collected 43 messages. I counted them the way I used to count first editions at estate sales. Methodically, without emotion, as if the number itself was the only thing that mattered, and not what the messages actually said. I sat in the reading room at the back of the house. Marian's room, really, though I had claimed it after she passed. Her armchair by the window, her reading lamp with the green glass shade, her shelves still organized by the system only she understood. The lamp cast a circle of warm light that made the rest of the room feel darker by comparison. The phone lay face up on the side table, its screen lighting the ceiling every few seconds like a small, cold heartbeat. Most of the messages were from Tyler. The first 10 had arrived in rapid succession during the hour after he left the shop. Short, clipped sentences that began as something resembling apology and devolved quickly into accusation. I should not have done that. Then, you pushed me to it. Then, you are making a mistake, old man. Then longer paragraphs about misunderstandings and stress and how I was overreacting to a moment of frustration, how families got through difficult times by forgiving, how holding a grudge would only isolate me further. The tone shifted around message 20. Colder, more calculated. References to lawyers, to slander, to what might happen if I tried to involve anyone outside the family. The word family appeared in nearly every message, wielded like a weapon rather than a bond. Natalie's messages arrived between his. Softer in tone, but somehow worse. 3 texts total, each one a careful construction of guilt and distance. The first. Dad, please do not tell anyone. It will make things so much worse for all of us. The second. He is under so much pressure. The business is failing. He was not himself today. The third. Sent just after 11. Think about what Mom would want. She would want us to stay together. I read that one 3 times. Sat with it the way you sit, with a sentence in a book that you know is wrong but cannot quite articulate why. Marian would want us to stay together. As if together meant silence. As if Marian, who had spent 42 years telling me exactly what she thought about everything from overcooked pasta to unjust wars, would have counseled me to swallow a slap and say nothing. I set the phone face down on the table and looked at the room around me. Marian's reading glasses still sat on the shelf where she had left them the last time she was lucid enough to read. A Wednesday in November, 3 years ago. She had been reading a biography of Zora Neale Hurston and had set the glasses down to ask me a question about dinner. She never picked them up again. The Alzheimer's took that from her overnight. One day she could read. The next, the words were strangers. I did not sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Natalie in the doorway, wearing Marian's cardigan. The blankness of her face, the way she had turned and followed him without a word, without a glance back. As if I were a stranger she had decided was not worth the effort of goodbye. Around 3 in the morning, I gave up trying. Made tea I did not drink. Stood at the kitchen window, watching the street lamp flicker at the end of the block. The neighborhood was silent. Savannah at 3 in the morning was a city holding its breath. Spanish moss hanging motionless. Not even the cicadas bothering to sing. I thought about what I would do when morning came. Not because I had a plan. I did not. But because thinking about tomorrow was easier than sitting with what had already happened. The throb in my jaw had settled into a dull ache, persistent enough to remind me it was real. Every time I touched the spot with my fingertips, the sense memory returned. The crack of contact. The taste of copper. Marian's book hitting the floor. When morning finally came, pale and gray through the kitchen windows, I knew what I needed to do. Not because some righteous certainty had crystallized overnight. Nothing so dramatic. I was simply tired. Tired of the phone lighting up. Tired of the ache that would not fade. Tired of sitting alone in a house that felt too large and too quiet, doing nothing while a man who had struck me slept soundly in a luxury apartment I was quite certain he could not afford. I went to my study, opened the top drawer of the walnut desk Marion had given me for our 30th anniversary. Beneath a stack of old royalty statements from the few articles I had published over the years, beneath expired insurance documents and a warranty card for a toaster we no longer owned, I found it. A business card. Cream-colored, heavy stock, embossed lettering, Deborah Kingsley, attorney at law. We had met at a library fundraiser 4 years ago. Marion had still been well enough to attend those things then, still sharp enough to hold a conversation and remember it the next morning. Deborah had given the keynote address about access to justice in rural communities. We had talked afterward over bad wine and good cheese, stayed in touch loosely. A birthday card here, an email about a book recommendation there, the kind of friendship that exists in the margins of life, barely visible but real. I picked up my phone, ignored the 4 new messages that had arrived overnight, found Deborah's number in my contacts, and pressed call. It rang twice. Her assistant answered. Bright voice. Professional. Kingsley and Associates. How may I help you? I need to speak with Deborah. My name is Eugene Hartwell. It is urgent. A pause. Hold please, Mr. Hartwell. She was back in less than 10 seconds. I am putting you through now. The line clicked. Then Deborah's voice, warm and direct. Eugene. Talk to me. The speed of it should have told me something. The way her assistant did not ask me to leave a message or schedule a call back. The way Deborah picked up immediately. No pleasantries. No how have you been. Just talk to me. As if she could hear in those first few seconds of silence everything I had not yet said. I need to see you, I said. Today, if possible. Something happened yesterday, and I need legal advice. She did not ask what, did not pry, just said, my office, 9:30. Do you know the building on Drayton Street? The one with the wrought iron balconies? I know it. I will be here. I hung up, set the phone down, looked at the business card in my other hand. Deborah Kingsley, attorney at law. 4 years this card had sat in that drawer. 4 years of not needing it, of hoping I never would. Marion had tucked it there herself after the fundraiser. Keep it, she had said. You never know. She was right. She was always right. Even now, 2 years gone, she was still right. I showered, dressed, did not eat. By 8:45, I was in my car, backing out of the driveway, the morning sun already warming the windshield. Savannah, in March. Azaleas just beginning to bloom along the sidewalks, the world moving forward as if nothing had changed. But it had. Deborah's office occupied the 3rd floor of a red brick building on Drayton Street that had stood since before the Civil War. The elevator was a cage-style relic, with an accordion gate that groaned the whole way up. She met me at the door herself. No receptionist, no handshake. She took one look at the bruise on my cheek and gestured me inside without a word. The office smelled like old paper and strong coffee. A mahogany desk dominated the room, stacked with case files and legal pads covered in handwriting, so precise it looked typeset. She poured coffee into a ceramic mug without asking and set it in front of me. Then she sat, pulled a fresh legal pad from the drawer, uncapped her pen, and waited. I told her everything. The demand for money, the refusal, what happened after, the book on the floor, Natalie in the doorway, the 43 messages. My voice stayed level the whole time, steady and detached, as if I were describing something that had happened to a character in a novel, something fictional and far away. Deborah did not interrupt, filled 2 pages of notes before I finished. When I stopped, she set the pen down and looked at me. Did anyone else see this happen? My daughter. She was there. Something flickered behind Deborah's eyes. Will she corroborate your account? I did not answer right away, because I did not know. And that not knowing felt like its own kind of injury. I do not think so, I said finally. She nodded slowly. Then we need evidence. Security cameras. Neighbors who might have heard. Anything. That is when I remembered. The camera sat above the front door of the shop. Small and black. Barely noticeable unless you knew to look. A security camera connected to an app on my phone that stored 60 days of footage. Marion had insisted on it 3 years ago, back when she still had good days between the bad ones. You have first editions worth more than our car, she had said. What if someone breaks in? I had teased her about it. Called her paranoid. She ignored me, as she often did when she knew she was right, and called the installation company herself. I had kept it running after she died, out of habit. Never watched the footage. Never had reason to. Until now. Deborah leaned forward when I told her. Not quite a smile, but the closest I had seen her come to one. You have the footage? On my phone. The app stores everything. Show me. I pulled up the app. The interface loaded slowly, buffering in that maddening way technology does when urgency demands speed. Then the feed appeared. My shop door. The timestamp reading yesterday's date. 2:47 in the afternoon. We watched together on her monitor. Tyler walking in. Me behind the counter. His gestures getting larger. My head shaking. Then his hand coming up. My head snapping right. The shelf vibrating. Something small falling to the floor. And there at the edge of the frame, visible through the open door, Natalie. A silhouette in a blue cardigan, motionless as a photograph. Deborah watched it twice without speaking. Then she leaned back and folded her hands. This is assault, she said. Not a question. A statement. Clear, documented, unambiguous assault. And your son-in-law is an idiot for not checking whether you had a camera. The way she said it, so matter-of-fact, made the tightness in my chest ease for the first time in 18 hours. This was not just my word against his anymore. This was real. Provable. What do I do with it? We file a police report. Attach the video. Let them decide whether to press charges. She paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard. But I need you to understand something, Eugene. Once you do this, there is no taking it back. Your son-in-law will know. Your daughter will know. This becomes official. Permanent. I thought about the 43 messages. About Marion's book torn on the floor. About Natalie turning away. Do it, I said. The rest of the afternoon blurred together. Paperwork. Statements. Deborah walking me through what would happen next. How the police would review the footage. How Tyler would be notified. I signed everything. My hand did not shake. Before I left, she saved the video 3 times. Her computer. A thumb drive. A secure cloud server. Thorough. You should hear from the police within 48 hours, she said. Then, she stopped me at the door, her hand firm on my arm. One more thing. Do not tell Tyler about the camera. That is our advantage. Do not give it away. I nodded. Rode the elevator back down in silence. Outside, Drayton Street was bright with afternoon sun. Tourists drifting between the squares. The ordinary world going about its ordinary business. I drove back to Willow Street and sat in my car, staring at the shop front. The camera was there. A small black circle tucked beneath the eaves. Such a small thing. Marion had put it there, had insisted on it when her memory was already beginning to fray. When she could not always remember what day it was, but somehow still remembered to protect this place. To protect me. She was still protecting me. Even now, I went inside, locked the door, and stood in the quiet. The torn book sat on the counter. Marion's lamp cast its green glow across the shelves. Everything was still. 48 hours. I could wait. The summons arrived 3 days later. A thick manila envelope with the county courthouse seal embossed on the front, delivered to my shop by a courier who asked me to sign and left without small talk. I stood behind the register and stared at the official language inside. The people of the state of Georgia versus Tyler James Bradshaw. Charges: assault in the 4th degree. Possible penalties up to 90 days in jail. Probation. Mandatory anger management. Deborah had offered to have it served through the sheriff's office. Standard procedure, she said. Clean. Professional. A deputy would hand Tyler the papers at his apartment or his office, and that would be that. But sitting there with the envelope in my hands, I realized I did not want it to be clean. I wanted him to see my face when he received it. Wanted him to understand that I was not hiding behind lawyers or deputies. That this was me, Eugene Hartwell, 70 years old, choosing not to let it go. Maybe that was petty. Probably was. But I had spent 3 nights sleeping poorly, and 3 days ignoring messages from Natalie, asking me to reconsider, asking me to think about what this would do to her marriage, to please just let it drop. I was done being reasonable. I put the envelope in my jacket pocket and drove downtown. Tyler's building was one of those new luxury developments that had sprung up along the riverfront, all glass and polished concrete, with a lobby that smelled like eucalyptus and money. The doorman recognized me from previous visits. Holiday dinners when Marion was alive and things still felt like family, and waved me through without question. The elevator was glass-walled and silent. I pressed 8 and watched the city shrink below me. The Savannah River, catching late afternoon light. Rooftops and church steeples, and the distant green canopy of Forsyth Park. Beautiful. Indifferent. Their unit was at the end of the hall. I could hear music from inside. Something jazzy and upbeat. I knocked twice, harder than necessary. The music cut off. Footsteps. Then the door opened, and there was Tyler. He looked different than he had in my shop. Better. Rested. His hair was combed, his shirt pressed. No sign of the tension that had radiated off him 3 days earlier. If anything, he looked pleased to see me. "Eugene," he said. His eyes moved quickly over me, checking if I was alone. Then they dropped to my jacket pocket, where the corner of the envelope was visible. A smile spread across his face. "Come in. Let us talk." I did not move. Did not cross his threshold. Just pulled the envelope from my pocket and held it between us. "This is for you." He took it, still smiling, though the smile had tightened at the corners. His fingers worked at the seal, tearing it open with an eagerness that turned my stomach. He thought I had brought him money, actually believed that the slap had worked, that I had come here to surrender. The summons slid out into his hand. I watched his face as he read. Watched the confusion first, like a man encountering a word in a language he does not speak. Then, comprehension. Then the color draining from his skin like water from a cracked glass. "What is this?" His voice had gone very quiet. "It is a court summons," I said. "For assault. You are being charged." He looked up at me. For half a second, I saw something I had never seen in him before. Fear. Then it was gone, buried beneath something uglier, harder. "You are serious." Not a question. An accusation. "You are actually doing this." "Over what? A misunderstanding?" "Yes." His hands crumpled the edge of the paper. His knuckles went white. "Over nothing," he said. "You are going to drag us into court. Over nothing. It is on camera." The words came out before I could stop them. Cold and sharp, curling through the air between us. I watched his face go slack. Watched his mouth open slightly. Close. Open again. The satisfaction was immediate. Hot and electric in my chest. He had not known. Had not even considered the possibility. And now he did. I should not have said it. Knew it the instant the words left my mouth. Deborah had told me explicitly. "Do not tell him about the camera. That is our advantage." But standing there in his doorway, watching him try to minimize what he had done, calling it nothing, calling it a misunderstanding, I wanted him to know. Wanted to see exactly what I saw. That flicker of real fear before the mask came back down. The silence stretched taut between us. Then Tyler's face twisted. He stepped forward, close enough that I could smell his cologne again. That same, sharp, expensive scent. Did it take a slap to wake you up? His voice was low, venomous. At your age, you should know better. Just hand over the money quietly and save yourself the embarrassment. But no, you had to make this difficult. I had already turned away. Started walking back toward the elevator. My hands were shaking now. Adrenaline flooding my system. Behind me, Tyler's voice rose. Something about lawyers. Something about Natalie. A string of threats I did not want to parse. The elevator doors opened. An older woman getting off on this floor. Small dog on a leash. She took one look at Tyler, shouting in his doorway, and hurried past with her eyes down. I stepped inside and pressed the lobby button. The doors slid shut, cutting Tyler off mid-sentence. The descent felt longer than the climb. I leaned against the glass wall and tried to steady my breathing. It is on camera. Why had I said that? Deborah had warned me, explicitly, and I had thrown away our advantage in a moment of petty satisfaction. The parking garage was dim and cool. I sat in my car without starting the engine, hands on the steering wheel, gripping until the trembling stopped. I had wanted to see his face. Mission accomplished. But now he knew about the camera. Knew I had evidence, and whatever slim chance there had been of him accepting this quietly had just evaporated. I started the car. The drive home felt longer than usual. Every red light, an opportunity to replay the conversation. His face when he read the summons. My own stupid satisfaction. The 3 words I could not take back. Deborah was going to be furious. My phone buzzed as I pulled into the driveway. A text from her. Summons delivered? I typed back. Yes. Did not mention the rest. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I went inside. Locked the door. Stood in the hallway, looking at the spot on the counter where Marion's torn book still sat. She would say I was an idiot. That I let my pride override my judgment. She would be right. Again, Natalie's text arrived on a Tuesday morning, 10 days after I had handed Tyler the summons. Short and formal, stripped of any warmth that might identify it, as a message from a daughter to her father. Can we meet today? The cafe on Liberty. 2 o'clock. No greeting, no question mark. Just a demand shaped like a request. I almost said no. Almost typed back that if she wanted to talk, she could come to the shop, stand in the doorway where she had stood silent while her husband struck me, and we could have an honest conversation there. But something in the clipped tone made me pause, the absence of any softness. As if she were messaging a colleague about a business matter, rather than reaching out to the man who had taught her to ride a bicycle on Forsyth Park's paths when she was 6 years old. I typed back. 2 o'clock. The cafe on Liberty Street was one of those places Savannah had accumulated over the past decade. Exposed brick, Edison bulbs, a chalkboard menu listing drinks with names I could not pronounce. The kind of establishment that made me feel every one of my 70 years the moment I walked through the door. I ordered plain black coffee and took a table by the window where I could watch the street. Natalie arrived 15 minutes late. When she pushed through the door, I barely recognized her. She had lost weight. Not the healthy kind. The kind that hollowed out the cheeks and made the collarbones stand out like wings beneath the skin. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a way that aged her well beyond 37. She wore a white blouse that needed ironing and carried no purse. Just her phone clutched in one hand like a lifeline. She did not order anything. Just sat down across from me and folded her hands on the table. Her knuckles were dry, cracked, the hands of someone who had been washing them too often, or wringing them, or both. Thanks for coming, she said, then took a breath. Dad, you have to drop this. The charges. The whole thing. It is destroying us. Not an apology. Not even an acknowledgement of what Tyler had done. Just straight to asking me to make it go away. As if the bruise on my face, faded now but still tender to the touch, was an inconvenience rather than a violation. He hit me, I said quietly. It was a mistake. He was stressed. He was not thinking clearly. He asked me for $35,000. When I said no, he struck me. Those are facts, Natalie. Her eyes welled up. I watched the tears form and felt something twist in my chest. But these were not tears of grief or empathy or remorse. I had seen those tears before on 100 different occasions. When she was 12 and wanted a later curfew. When she was 20 and needed rent money. These tears were calculated. Deployed like a tool from a familiar kit. You are ruining his career, she said, her voice cracking precisely where it needed to crack. Clients are already pulling away because of the rumors. People are talking. His reputation is being destroyed. Our reputation. For what? Your pride? My pride. I repeated. The word tasted like ash. What else could it be? He made a mistake. One moment of bad judgment. And you are turning it into a vendetta. She leaned forward, and for a moment she looked so much like Marion that my breath caught. We are family, Dad. Family forgives. Family moves on. I thought about the 43 messages. About her standing in that doorway wearing her dead mother's cardigan. About how she had not called once in 10 days to ask if I was all right. Not once. Not a single text that said, "Are you okay?" Just silence. And then this. This performance. Where were you? I asked. She blinked. What? When he hit me. You were right there at the door. And you did not say a word. Something flickered across her face. Fast. Gone before I could name it. I was in shock. I did not know what to do. You knew enough to leave with him. Knew enough to text me that night telling me to keep quiet. But you could not manage a single word while it was happening. I was trying to protect our family. No. The word came out harder than I intended. Sharper. You were trying to protect him. There is a difference. Her expression changed. The tears evaporated as if someone had turned off a faucet. What remained was something cooler, harder. The face of a woman who had made her choice and resented being asked to defend it. So that is it, she said. You are really going through with this? Yes. She stood so abruptly that her chair scraped against the floor with a sound that made the barista look up. Fine. But do not expect me to be there when this all falls apart. Do not expect me to pick up the pieces when you realize what you have done to this family. She turned and walked out. Did not look back. Through the window, I watched her cross the sidewalk and get into Tyler's car. A black sedan parked illegally at the curb. She pulled away too fast. Tires chirping slightly on the turn, past the florist on the corner. I sat there for a long time. My coffee had gone cold without my noticing. The cafe hummed around me. Conversations I could not hear. Music I could not identify. The ordinary sounds of other people's ordinary lives. The messages started again that evening. Tyler. Longer than before. More aggressive. Something about defamation. Something about how I was the one who had crossed a line. His lawyers would tear apart my little video, he wrote. I stopped reading after the 5th one. Around 9 o'clock, a text arrived from an unknown number. No words. Just a photograph. Tyler and Natalie. A selfie taken somewhere with warm lighting. Both of them smiling. His arm around her shoulders. She was leaning into him. Her expression bright. Unconcerned. As if the conversation at the cafe had never happened. As if nothing in the world was wrong. Below the photo, a caption. Family stays together. I stared at it until the screen went dark. Then I set the phone on the kitchen table, face down, and looked around the empty house. Marion's reading glasses on their shelf, her green lamp glowing softly in the study. the silence pressing in from every corner. Family stays together. That is what they wanted me to see. Not just that Natalie had chosen him, but that she was happy about it. That I was on the outside now, looking in. I poured a glass of bourbon I did not want. Sat in the reading room with the lights off, and somewhere in the darkness, beneath the ache in my chest and the cold in my stomach, a question began to form that I was not yet ready to answer. Had I ever really known my daughter at all? The email arrived at 7:14 on a Wednesday morning. Blank subject line. A sender I did not recognize. 2 sentences that changed everything. Tyler Bradshaw owes me $52,000 from 2 years ago. I have proof. Do you want to talk? Franklin Moss. Nobody I knew. But he knew Tyler. And Tyler owed him $52,000. I thought about the $35,000 Tyler had demanded from me. The luxury apartment. The black sedan. None of it had ever added up. I typed back. Yes. When and where? We met the next day at a place called the Magnolia Grill on Waters Avenue. The kind of diner where nobody looked twice at 2 men having a serious conversation in a back booth. Red vinyl seats, laminated menus, a waitress who called everyone sugar. Franklin Moss pulled up in a dented Volvo. 58, maybe. Sandy hair going gray. Wire-rimmed glasses. Corduroy jacket, with leather patches at the elbows. He looked like exactly what he was. A professor. A man who believed rational conversation could solve most problems and had learned the hard way that it could not. When he slid into the booth, the first thing I noticed was the scar. Thin and pale across his forehead above the left eyebrow. 1.5 inches. The kind of mark that fades but never disappears. He pulled a manila folder from his messenger bag. When I saw your name in the police report, he said, I figured you needed to know what you are dealing with. Inside were printouts, emails, contracts, bank statements, all organized with colored tabs and annotations in the margins. 2 years of evidence, built by a man who had not known what to do with it. Tyler and I met at an education technology conference in Atlanta in 2021, Franklin said. He pitched me on a platform, adaptive learning software for underfunded schools, showed me a prototype, market research, projected revenues. I put in $52,000. My retirement savings. He pulled out a contract. Tyler's signature at the bottom. An LLC called Bradshaw Educational Partners. 6 months in, I started asking questions. Where were the pilot schools? He kept making excuses. Then one day I drove to the address on the contract. Our supposed office. It was a mail forwarding service. A box rental with a street address that looked real. No office. No employees. No prototype. He touched the scar on his forehead. A reflexive gesture. I confronted him. Restaurant downtown. Told him I wanted my money back. Or I was going to the police. In the parking lot after, he shoved me. I went down. Hit my head on the base of a lamppost. 7 stitches. He showed me his phone. An emergency room photograph. Face swollen. Blood matting the hair above his eyebrow. Glasses broken beside him, on the gurney. I filed a police report. Franklin said. Had a lawyer. Had documentation. Was ready to pursue civil action. What happened? He set his coffee cup down carefully and looked at me. Your daughter called me. The booth seemed to shrink. The diner noise faded to static. 2 days after I filed the report, she said her husband had made a mistake. That he was under enormous stress. That I was blowing things out of proportion. She cried on the phone. Told me they were trying to start a family. Asked me to let it go. He paused. Then my lawyer got a letter from Tyler's attorney. Threatening a countersuit for defamation. I am a professor, Eugene. I do not have resources for that kind of fight. So I dropped it. Ate the loss. $52,000. Gone. I stared at the documents on the table. Natalie had not just stood by while Tyler operated. She had actively helped. called his victims, pressured them, cried on command. "You are sure it was her?" She introduced herself as Natalie Bradshaw, said she was calling because she loved her husband and wanted to fix things peacefully. Franklin leaned forward. "I am telling you this because you need to understand. This is not just Tyler. It is both of them. He finds the marks. She cleans up when things go wrong. They work as a team." The diner felt too bright, too small. "Do you think there are others?" Franklin nodded. "Men like Tyler do not run one con. They are serial. Find a target, bleed them, move on to the next." I sat with that. Let it settle into the place where the question from last night still lived. Had I ever really known my daughter? The answer was becoming clearer, and it was not the answer I wanted. Then something surfaced from memory. A conversation from 2 years ago. Marion, still lucid enough to notice the people around her, mentioning after church that Reverend Hutchins had seemed troubled, that he had mentioned money worries. She had offered to help. He had brushed it off, embarrassed. "I think I know someone," I said. "A man from our church. Reverend Hutchins. He was a regular at the shop. Marion knew him well." Franklin pulled a pen from his jacket. "If Tyler approached him too, we can establish a pattern. Makes it impossible to dismiss as isolated misunderstandings." We shook hands in the parking lot. His grip steadier than when we started. "Be careful," he said. "Tyler is dangerous when cornered. And your daughter." He hesitated. "She is in deep. Be ready for that." I drove home through familiar streets that felt foreign. Your daughter called me. She cried on the phone. They worked together. The words cycling through my mind like a song I could not stop hearing. Back at the house, I pulled Marion's old address book from the study shelf. Her careful handwriting. Found Reverend Hutchins between Henderson Plumbing and Hirsch, Dr. Samuel. His phone number in her slanted script. A note beside it. "Lovely man. Bring him soup when it rains." I picked up the phone. Reverend Hutchins answered on the first ring. His voice was thin and careful, the way people sound when they have forgotten how to trust the telephone, when they expect bad news every time it rings. "Reverend, it is Eugene Hartwell, Marion's husband." A pause. Then, softer. "Eugene, it has been a while. How are you holding up?" The question was genuine. I could hear it. The concern of a man who had known Marion for 20 years, who had spoken at her memorial service, who used to come into the shop every Thursday afternoon to browse the poetry section and stay for tea. "I am managing," I said. "But I am not calling about myself. I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did Tyler Bradshaw ever approach you about money?" The silence that followed was long enough to count. 3 seconds. 4. 5. Then a breath. Slow. Shaking. Slightly. "You had better come over, Eugene." His house was a small bungalow on the east side, set back from the road behind azalea bushes that would not bloom for another 2 weeks. White clapboard. Green shutters. A porch with 2 rocking chairs and a Bible sitting face down on the side table, holding its own place. I had been here before, years ago, for a church potluck Marion had organized. The house smelled the same. Lemon polish and old hymnals. The Reverend met me at the door. 76 years old. Thinner than I remembered. His hands shook slightly as he gestured me inside. On the walls, photographs of his congregation spanning decades. Baptisms, choir performances, community dinners. A life spent in service. He made tea. Earl Grey in delicate cups with saucers that did not match. We sat in his living room, and he pulled a shoebox from beneath the coffee table. Inside were papers. Not as organized as Franklin's folder, but present. Bank statements. A printed email. A brochure for something called the Savannah Community Faith Center. "He came to me in 2022, the Reverend said, after a Sunday service. said he was developing a community outreach center, interfaith, programs for at-risk youth, job training, counseling services. He showed me this brochure, professional, full color, photographs of buildings that looked real. He handed me the brochure, glossy paper, renderings of a modern building with wide glass windows. Tyler's name listed as Executive Director, a board of advisors that I suspected were entirely fictional. He said he needed seed funding. The Reverend continued that several churches had already committed, that Marian had recommended me specifically, that she had told him I was generous and believed in community work. Marian recommended you, I repeated. My voice came out flat. That is what he said. And I believed him because Marian was family to me. Had been for 20 years. Why would her son-in-law lie to a man of God about something like this? How much? $30,000. My entire savings account. Money. My late wife and I had set aside for our grandchildren's education. His hands trembled around the teacup. The shame on his face was something I recognized. Not the shame of having done wrong, but the shame of having been made a fool, of trusting and being punished for it. 6 months later, the Reverend said, I tried to visit the construction site. The address on the brochure led to a vacant lot on the south side. Weeds growing through the concrete. No building, no foundation. Nothing. He set the teacup down. It rattled against the saucer. I was too ashamed to tell anyone. A minister who cannot even protect his own savings. What would my congregation think? We sat in silence for a moment. The afternoon light moving slowly across the room. Dust particles floating in the air like tiny stars. Then the Reverend said something that stopped my heart. Eugene, there is something else. About Marian. I looked at him. His eyes were wet. In her last year, before the Alzheimer's got very bad, she mentioned something to me after service one Sunday. She said Tyler had asked her for help with something for Natalie. She seemed uncertain about it, said it was a lot of money but that family was family. I told her to follow her heart. He paused. She mentioned giving Tyler money. For Natalie's benefit, she said. Did you know about that? The room tilted. I gripped the arm of the chair. No, I said, I did not know. I wondered afterward. The Reverend said quietly. After she passed. Whether it was real. Whether Tyler had actually used the money for Natalie. But I did not feel it was my place to ask. And then the Alzheimer's took her. And there was no one left to ask. I stood up. My legs felt uncertain beneath me. The Reverend rose too. Alarmed. Eugene. Are you all right? I need to make a phone call. I drove home in a state I cannot fully describe. Not shock, exactly. Something deeper. The kind of cold that settles into the marrow. Marian had given Tyler money. My wife. While she was sick. While her mind was already fraying at the edges. He had gone to her. And she had given him money. And she had never told me. Or maybe she had tried to tell me and forgotten. Maybe the Alzheimer's had taken the memory before she could share it. Maybe she had written it down somewhere, and I had never found it. I sat in my driveway and called Aunt Ruth, Marian's younger sister, 72, living in Jacksonville, Florida. We had not spoken since the first anniversary of Marian's death. Ruth, it is Eugene. I need to ask you something about Marian's finances in her last year. About money she may have given to Tyler. Silence on the line. Long. Waited. I could hear her breathing. Could hear the television murmuring in the background. Then she spoke. 5 words that hung in the air like a verdict. I was wondering when someone would finally ask. Ruth's package arrived on a Saturday morning. Small cardboard box held together with too much packing tape. Her handwriting on the label in careful block letters. No return address. I carried it into the reading room and set it on Marian's side table beside her green lamp. The box was light. Whatever was inside did not weigh much. I told myself that was a good sign. though I did not know what I meant by it. As if weight correlated with damage. As if the heaviest truths came in the heaviest packages. I was wrong. Inside was a leather-bound journal I had never seen before. Small. Burgundy. The kind Marion used to buy at the stationery shop on Bull Street. Beneath it, a manila envelope containing bank statements from Marion's personal savings account. The account I thought I had closed out after she died. The account Robert, her estate attorney, had assured me was settled. The bank statement was dated January through April of 2023. Marion's last spring. The spring she could still dress herself most mornings but could not always remember my name by dinner. The spring the doctors said the decline was accelerating. One line was highlighted in yellow. A transfer. $45,000. Sent to an external account listed as T. Bradshaw Consulting, LLC. Date stamped March 3rd. I stared at it. Read the number again. 45,000. March 3rd. I pulled up my old calendar on my phone. March 3rd was a Thursday. I had been at a rare books fair in Charleston that day. A 2-day trip. I had almost canceled because Marion had been confused that morning, calling me by her father's name. But she had insisted I go. Said she felt fine. Said Natalie would check in. I had left her alone. And Tyler had come. The journal was worse. Marion's handwriting filled the pages. Shaky in places, steady in others. Not a diary exactly. More like notes to herself. Reminders. Lists of medications. Names of people she was afraid she would forget. My name appeared on the second page, circled twice with an arrow pointing to a note. Husband. Eugene. Loves books. Loves me. The entries I needed were near the back. Dated January through March of 2023. January 28th. Tyler came by this afternoon. Eugene was at the shop. Tyler seemed upset. Said Natalie needs new supplies for her classroom. Special equipment for students with learning disabilities. Very expensive. $20,000. He showed me a catalog. It looked official. He said he would handle everything if I could help with the cost. I want to help. Natalie works so hard with those children. February 14th. Tyler came again. Said the school board approved an expansion of Natalie's program, but needs more funding. Another. $25,000. I asked if Eugene knew. He said it would be better as a surprise. That Eugene would be so proud of Natalie when he saw the results. I am not sure. That is a lot of money. But Natalie is my daughter. And Tyler says this will change children's lives. February 22nd. I cannot remember if I already transferred the money. Tyler says I did. He showed me a confirmation on his phone. Maybe I am confused again. It has been happening more often. Things slip. I hate this. I hate not trusting my own mind. March 1st. Tyler sent me the account information. Called it a business account because it is easier for transfers. He said the program is going wonderfully. Natalie's students are thriving. That feels good. To still be useful. To help even when I feel so useless most days. March 15th. Have not heard from Tyler about how the program is going. Maybe I should ask. But I do not want to seem pushy. He is busy. Natalie is busy. Everyone is so busy. The entries after that grew shorter. More scattered. Marion's handwriting deteriorating with each page. Nothing more about the money. Just notes about pain levels. Doctor appointments. A reminder to water the plants. The last entry was dated April 2nd. 4 words. I forgot something important. I closed the journal. Set it down on the table. My hands were shaking in a way they had not shaken since the night Tyler hit me. There was one more thing in the box. A printed email. Marion had been old-fashioned that way. Always printing important correspondence. From T. Bradshaw Consulting to Marion Hartwell. Dated March 5th, 2023. Dear Mom Marion, I cannot express how grateful we are for your generosity. Natalie's classroom program is already changing lives. The children are thriving because of your kindness. You have given them something money cannot buy. A future. We will pay you back as soon as the school board reimburses the program costs. With love and gratitude, Tyler. Mom Marion. He had called her Mom Marion while taking $45,000 from a woman who could not remember whether she had already paid. I searched for Natalie's school on my phone, pulled up their website, clicked through to the programs page. There was no special needs expansion, no learning disabilities equipment, no program matching anything Tyler had described. Natalie taught second grade reading. That was all. That had always been all. Then I remembered something else. The books. Marion's personal collection. The ones that had been on her shelf at home, not in the shop. First editions she had kept in the house. A signed Toni Morrison. A pristine Beloved. A collection of Langston Hughes poetry. I had noticed they were missing after she died, but assumed Natalie had taken them as keepsakes. Had thought it was sweet. A daughter, wanting her mother's favorite things. I opened my laptop, searched eBay for the titles, filtered by sold listings. It took less than 5 minutes to find them. A seller called Savannah Rare Finds. 3 of Marion's books, sold between January and March of 2023. Total proceeds. Just over $8,000. The seller's registered name. T. Bradshaw. He had sold her books while she was still alive. While she was losing her mind. Had walked into our home and taken them off the shelf, knowing she would not remember they were gone, knowing that if I noticed, she would think she had misplaced them herself, would blame her own failing memory, rather than suspect her son-in-law. I sat in the dark, did not turn on the lamp. The bank statement glowed faintly in the light from the street outside. $45,000, plus the books. Plus the $15,000 I had given over the years, plus Franklin's $52,000, plus the Reverend's $30,000. I did the math in my head without wanting to. $197,000. Nearly $200,000 stolen from people who trusted him. Not strangers. Family. Friends. A man of God. A dying woman who just wanted to feel useful. I looked at Marion's photograph on the shelf. She smiled out at me from a summer 5 years ago. Before the diagnosis. Before everything, she could not remember. And he used that. Used her disease as a tool. Used her love for Natalie as a lever. Used her kindness, her desire to help, her fear of being useless, against her. The fury that settled into my chest was not hot. Was not the sharp, impulsive anger that had made me blurt it as on camera in Tyler's doorway. This was something else entirely. Colder. Denser. The kind of cold that does not burn your skin. It burns through it. Absolute zero. The temperature at which all molecular motion stops. At which everything becomes still and hard and permanent. I sat there until the streetlights outside clicked off at dawn. Did not move. Did not sleep. Just held my wife's journal in the dark and let the cold fill every empty space inside me. I should have called Deborah. Should have waited until morning, driven to her office, handed her the journal and the bank statements, and let her decide what to do with them. That is what a rational man would have done. A patient man. A man who had not just spent 6 hours in the dark holding his dead wife's journal while the cold ate through him like acid through paper. Instead, I opened my laptop at 2 in the morning and started typing. It poured out of me. Everything. Tyler's name. His company. The pattern. Franklin's $52,000. And the scar on his forehead. The Reverend's $30,000 and the vacant lot where a community center was supposed to stand. Marion's journal entries. The email. Mom Marion. The $45,000 stolen from a woman whose mind was dissolving, who could not remember whether she had already paid, who just wanted to feel useful in her final months. I wrote about the books. Her signed, Toni Morrison. her Langston Hughes. Sold on eBay while she was still alive, by a man who knew she would blame her own failing memory. I wrote about Natalie. Not everything. Just that she was my daughter. That she had stood in the doorway while her husband struck me. That she had called Franklin and pressured him to drop his case. That I did not recognize her anymore. I did not edit. Did not pause. Did not reconsider. Just typed. Until there was nothing left inside me, and hit share. The response was immediate. Within an hour, the post had been shared 40 times. Within 2, over 100. Comments poured in like water through a broken dam. Outrage. Sympathy. People sharing their own stories of being lied to by people they trusted. Someone found Tyler's business website and left a 1-star review. Someone else tagged the Georgia Secretary of State's office demanding an investigation. It felt good. For those first few hours, sitting in the glow of my laptop watching the numbers climb, it felt like Marion's story was finally being heard. Like the truth had weight and reach and the power to do what I alone could not. Then my phone rang. 5:47 in the morning. Deborah, tell me you did not just post what I think you posted. Her voice was controlled fury. The kind of calm that comes from being too angry to shout. Deborah, I found Marion's journal. He stole $45,000 from her while she had Alzheimer's. He sold her books. He called her Mom Marion in an email while he was robbing her blind. I understand that, and I am sorry. But Eugene, what were you thinking? You just handed Tyler's lawyers a gift-wrapped defense strategy. Every word of that post can now be used to argue you are orchestrating a harassment campaign. He can claim jury pool contamination. He can move for a change of venue. He can sue you for defamation. As if on cue, my email notification chimed. A message from an address I did not recognize. Subject line: cease and desist. Urgent. I opened it. 3 paragraphs of legal language from a downtown law firm. The essence was simple: take down the post within 48 hours and issue a public apology, or face a civil lawsuit for defamation seeking damages of $500,000. Deborah, they are threatening to sue me for $500,000. Of course they are. It is a pressure tactic. They will claim you damaged his business reputation, his ability to earn a living. It might not hold up in court, but defending against it will cost you tens of thousands in legal fees at minimum. I stared at the email. At the 48-hour deadline, the post had over 300 shares now. Screenshots existed. People had copied the text, reposted it, commented on it. Taking it down would not make it disappear. I cannot take it down, I said. Everything I wrote is true. Truth is not the standard for defamation, Deborah said, her voice slightly gentler now. The standard is whether you can prove it is true in court. And you just gave Tyler's legal team advance notice of every single piece of evidence we have. They know about the journal now. They know about the bank statements. They know about Franklin and the Reverend. You showed them our entire hand. Silence. I looked at the laptop screen. The comment count was climbing past 500. A news aggregator had picked up the post. So I made a mistake, I said. Yes. Just like you made a mistake telling Tyler about the camera. You let your emotions override your strategic thinking. And now we deal with the consequences. She was right. I had done exactly the same thing. Acted on impulse, on rage, on the need to do something, anything. Right now, rather than waiting for the proper process to work. What do? Nothing. Do not respond to the cease and desist. Do not take down the post. There is no point now. Do not engage with anyone commenting. Do not talk to reporters if they contact you. I will draft a response to his lawyers. But Eugene, no more public statements. Not on social media. Not to friends. Not to anyone. Can you do that? Yes, I am serious. One more impulsive move, and this case becomes significantly harder to win. After we hung up, I sat with the laptop open. The post was still spreading. 600 shares. Comments from strangers. Calling for justice. Everything I had wanted. And everything I should not have done. I closed the laptop. Looked at Marion's journal still sitting on the side table. Her photograph on the shelf, catching the first gray light of dawn through the window. She would say the same thing Deborah said. That I had let my pride drive the car again. That the satisfaction of being heard was not worth the strategic damage. That patience was not weakness. She would be right. She was always right. My phone buzzed. Another notification. Another comment. Another stranger weighing in on my family's destruction. I turned the phone face down on the table and sat in the silence. The house was so quiet. The reading room so empty. Marion's lamp unlit. Her chair unoccupied. Her journal full of words she could no longer remember writing. I had wanted the world to know what Tyler had done to her. Now the world knew. And I was not sure it had cost me less than it cost him. The article went live on a Tuesday morning, 1 week after my impulsive post. I found it because my phone started buzzing before I had finished my first cup of coffee. A text from Franklin. Just a link and 3 words. She did it. The headline sat at the top of the Savannah Morning News homepage. The perfect son-in-law. A con man's trail through Savannah. Below it, Rachel Okafor's byline. Below that, a professional headshot of Tyler. Confident smile. Expensive suit. The kind of face that made you want to hand over your money. I read the article standing in my kitchen, coffee cooling on the counter. Rachel had done exactly what she promised when she visited my shop the week before. The piece was exhaustive, methodical. She had interviewed Franklin and the Reverend separately, verified the bank transfers, tracked down the shell companies Tyler operated through. She had obtained comment from the Georgia Secretary of State's office, confirming they had received multiple complaints about T. Bradshaw Consulting over the past 2 years. She wrote about Marion. One paragraph that landed like a fist, a journal entry from a woman with advancing Alzheimer's, documenting her confusion about a $45,000 transfer to her son-in-law's company. An email in which the defendant addressed the victim as Mom Marion, while fabricating a story about a school program that did not exist. Rachel had confirmed with Natalie's school district that no such program had ever been proposed, funded, or implemented. She had even found the eBay listings. Screenshots of Marion's books sold by a user called Savannah Rare Finds, registered to T. Bradshaw. The article did not editorialize. Did not need to. Just facts. Clean. Devastating. $197,000. 5 victims. A pattern spanning 3 years. My phone kept buzzing. Within an hour, the article had jumped to regional news aggregators. By noon, a national outlet had picked it up. Comments, sections filled with outrage. Calls for prosecution. Demands that Tyler's professional certifications be revoked. For about 4 hours, I let myself believe it was over. That the truth was out there now, solid and undeniable. And that the machinery of justice would do the rest. That I could sit in my shop and sort books and let other people carry the weight. Then Tyler's lawyers filed their response. The notification came as an update appended to Rachel's article. Tyler Bradshaw's attorney had filed a defamation lawsuit seeking $500,000 in damages against both me and the Savannah Morning News. Additionally, they had filed a motion to delay the criminal trial, arguing that extensive media coverage had made it impossible for their client to receive a fair hearing. I called Deborah. I saw it, she said. The motion to delay is standard. The judge will see through it. The video evidence is too strong. But there is something else. The motion includes a request to subpoena your daughter as a witness. They claim she can testify that you have been orchestrating a campaign against Tyler. My kitchen felt smaller than it had 5 minutes ago. Natalie would not do that, I said. Then stopped, because I did not know anymore. did not know what she would or would not do. Deborah did not respond. She did not need to. The silence said it clearly enough. Natalie's email arrived that afternoon. Subject line: "Are you happy now, Dad? I was placed on administrative leave today, pending investigation into my involvement with an ongoing fraud case." Those were my principal's exact words. 7 years I have worked at that school. 7 years building a reputation, earning trust, making a difference in children's lives. And now I am suspended because my father decided to wage a public war against my husband. You could not just let it go. Could not handle it privately. Had to make it a spectacle. Had to involve reporters and social media and turn our family into a headline. I hope it was worth it. Do not contact me again. And no. I read it 4 times. Searched every sentence for some trace of the daughter I raised. The girl who had loved reading. Who had wanted to be a teacher since she was 8. Who used to sit in Marion's lap in the shop and listen to stories until she fell asleep. That girl would not have written this email. Would not have reduced 7 years of work to everything we built. Would not have ignored every victim, every stolen dollar, every page of her mother's confused journal, to focus only on her own inconvenience. But maybe this was who she had always been. And I had been too close to see it. My phone buzzed again. Unknown number. The same one as before. Another photograph. Tyler and Natalie at what looked like a restaurant, both smiling. Wine glasses raised, caption beneath. Family stays together. I stared at it until the screen dimmed. They were performing. For me. For themselves. For whoever needed convincing that their world was not collapsing. The photo was a message and a weapon, all at once. We are fine. You are alone. I set the phone down. Walked to the front of the shop. Stood behind the register where Marion used to sit and looked out at Willow Street through the glass. Late afternoon. The oak trees, casting long shadows. A couple walking past holding hands. The florist sweeping her sidewalk. Normal. All of it normal. And none of it mine anymore. I picked up the phone and called Deborah. I need you to investigate Natalie's role in the fraud, I said. Franklin told me she called him. Pressured him to drop his complaint. She is not a bystander. She is part of it. Silence. Long enough that I heard the traffic outside her office window. Eugene. Are you sure you want to go down this road? I looked at the shelf behind me. Marion's shelf. The gap where the 1962 first edition used to sit before it fell and tore. The books on either side leaning slightly inward, filling the space the way neighbors lean toward a house that has burned down. I am sure. Another pause. Then, I will talk to the prosecutor. But I want you to understand what this means. If evidence is found, if charges are filed, your daughter could face jail time. I know. Is that what you want? I do not know what I want anymore, I said. I just know what is true. Deborah exhaled. All right. I will make the calls. In the meantime, same rules. No contact with Tyler. No contact with Natalie. No public statements of any kind. I hung up. The shop was empty. The afternoon light had turned golden, the way it does in Savannah just before evening. I stood behind the register and felt the weight of what I had just asked for. My own daughter. Investigated. Possibly charged. Marion's photograph watched me from the shelf. That summer smile. Before everything. My daughter was not who I thought she was. Maybe never had been. And I had just pointed a loaded weapon in her direction and asked someone else to pull the trigger. The shop bell chimed. A customer. I wiped my face, put on the expression of a man who sold books for a living, and said good afternoon. I learned all of this later. Much later. After the trial, after the sentencing, after everything had settled into its final shape, Natalie told Deborah during a series of long meetings in the weeks before the court date, and Deborah, much later still, told me. Not everything at once. In pieces. The way you deliver news that might break a person if given whole. But I am telling it to you now, the way it happened. Because without understanding what Natalie went through in those weeks, I could not reach her. The rest of the story makes no sense. The pregnancy test came back positive on a Wednesday in late May. 8 weeks. She had suspected for 2 weeks before that. The nausea in the mornings. The exhaustion that sat on her like a weight she could not shift. She had bought the test at a pharmacy 2 towns over, paying cash. As if the act of confirming it needed to be secret even from herself. She sat on the bathroom floor of their apartment for a long time afterward, staring at the 2 lines. 8 weeks. Conceived in early April. Before Tyler had come to my shop, before everything had cracked open, she told Tyler that evening. Waited until after dinner. Until he was relaxed, scrolling through his phone on the couch. She said the words simply, "I am pregnant." The silence lasted 5 seconds. Then, Tyler stood up. His face went flat in a way she told Deborah she had seen before, but never directed at her. Cold. Mechanical. This is not the time for a baby. Not congratulations. Not how do you feel. Not even surprise. Just a flat rejection. A statement of inconvenience. She tried to explain. That she had not planned it. That it was a surprise. That they could figure it out together. He cut her off. We are in the middle of lawsuits. Multiple lawsuits. Your father is trying to destroy me. And you think this is a good time to bring a child into this? His voice got louder. She stepped back. He slammed his hand down on the kitchen counter, hard enough that the wine glasses in the cabinet above rattled. Figure it out, he said. Then grabbed his jacket and left. She stood alone in that kitchen with one hand on her stomach and the other gripping the counter edge until her knuckles went white. And for the first time since she married him, she allowed herself to think the thought she had been pushing away for years. What if I made a mistake? The subpoena arrived 2 weeks later. Official envelope. County seal. Her full name typed across the front. Natalie Marie Hartwell Bradshaw. You are hereby commanded to appear as a witness. Failure to appear may result in contempt charges. Tyler told her not to worry. Spousal privilege. She did not have to say anything. But Natalie had been a teacher long enough to know how to research. She spent that night on her laptop after Tyler fell asleep. Legal terms she barely understood. Accessory after the fact. Conspiracy. To commit fraud. Obstruction of justice. She had called Franklin Moss 3 years ago. Had told him a lawsuit would hurt everyone. Had cried on the phone. Had thought she was protecting her marriage. Helping her husband through a difficult time. Being a good wife. Now, staring at the subpoena, she saw it for what it actually was. She had helped cover up a crime. The panic was unlike anything she had felt before. Not the sharp kind that comes and goes. The slow kind. The kind that builds in your chest over days and does not leave. The kind that makes you start opening drawers you have never opened, pulling boxes from closets you have ignored for years. That is how she found it. A locked filing box Tyler kept in the back of their bedroom closet. She had never asked about it. Had assumed it was old tax documents or business records that did not concern her. But the lock was cheap. A paperclip was enough. Inside were bank statements. Not Tyler's. Marion's. Her mother's personal savings account. A highlighted transfer. $45,000. March 2023. T. Bradshaw Consulting LLC. Beneath the statement, a printed email. From Tyler to Marion, dated March 5th. Dear Mom Marion, Natalie's classroom program is already changing lives. She read it twice. Then pulled out her phone and called the school district where she worked. Asked if any special needs expansion had been proposed for her classroom in 2023. The answer was no. Nothing. Not ever. Tyler had used her name. Had told her mother that Natalie needed money for children. had invented a program and attached her daughter's identity to it, knowing Marion would never refuse something that helped Natalie. Knowing Marion's disease would erase the memory before questions could be asked. Natalie sat on the closet floor surrounded by papers. One hand pressed against her stomach where an 8-week-old life was growing. And she thought, he stole from my mother. He used my name to steal from my mother. While she was dying, she waited until that evening to confront him. Spread the papers across the kitchen counter. Held up the bank statement. What is this? He glanced at it. Old paperwork. Why? $45,000 to your company. 4 months before she died. Something in his face shifted. The easy confidence flickered like a light bulb before it burns out. Mom Marion wanted to help. It was her choice. She offered. Natalie held up the email. This program does not exist. I checked with my district. There is no special needs expansion. There never was. The silence stretched. Then Tyler leaned against the counter and crossed his arms. She had Alzheimer's. Natalie. She was confused. She wanted to feel useful. I gave her that. A sense of purpose. Something to believe she was still contributing. You stole $45,000 from a woman who could not remember her own name. She gave it willingly. Because you lied to her. Because you used my name. You told her it was for my students. Tyler's expression changed, the mask slipping fully for the first time. What came underneath was something she had glimpsed before in small moments but never faced directly. Cold. Empty. Predatory. She had Alzheimer's anyway, he said. What was she going to do with the money? Sit in a nursing home and forget it existed? 4 words. She had Alzheimer's anyway. Said the way you would say the milk expired anyway. The shirt was stained anyway. Something disposable. Something already lost. Natalie told Deborah that something broke inside her in that moment. Not cracked. Not bent. Broke. The thing that had kept her tethered to him. The story she had told herself about stress and mistakes and love underneath it all. Snapped clean through. She did not argue. Did not shout. Just gathered the papers, walked to the bedroom, closed the door, sat on the bed with her phone, and photographed everything. The bank statement, the email, every page. Sent them all to her personal email. Subject line, keep these. Then she opened her contacts. Scrolled past the names she recognized. Past friends and colleagues, and Tyler's associates. Stopped on a name she had deleted, and re-added 3 times in the past month. A name she had been circling like a woman walking the edge of a cliff, looking down, not quite ready to jump. Deborah Kingsley. Attorney at law. Her finger hovered over the call button. She did not press it that night. Not yet. First, she needed to think. To figure out what she was willing to lose. What she was willing to protect. But sitting on that bed with her hand on her stomach and her mother's stolen money documented on her phone, she already knew. Had known, maybe, since Tyler said figure it out about their baby. Since he slammed his hand on the counter. Since she stood in my shop doorway and watched him hit her father and could not make her legs move. She knew. It was just a matter of when. The call came on a Monday morning, 2 weeks before the trial date. I was in the shop, rearranging the poetry section for no reason other than needing my hands to do something while my mind turned in circles. Deborah's name lit my phone screen. Eugene. Her voice was tight with something I had not heard in it before. Controlled. Deliberate. But beneath the control, unmistakably, excitement. We need to talk. In person. Can you be at my office in an hour? What is going on? Not over the phone. Trust me. You will want to sit down for this. I closed the shop. Did not bother flipping the sign. Just locked the door and drove downtown with my hands steady on the wheel and my mind running through every possibility. A development in the defamation case. New evidence from Rachel's investigation. Something about the motion to delay. None of those guesses came close. Deborah's office door was open when I reached the 3rd floor. She stood by the window. Arms folded. her silhouette sharp against the morning light. When she heard me in the doorway, she turned. "Close the door." I did. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. I sat. She remained standing for a moment, as if deciding where to begin. Then she walked to her desk, opened a manila folder, and slid a photograph across to me. A bank statement. Marion's account. January through April 2023. The same highlighted transfer I had seen in Ruth's package. $45,000 to T. Bradshaw Consulting, LLC. "I know this," I said. "Ruth sent me the same thing." Deborah shook her head. "This is not from Ruth. This copy came from someone else." She slid a second document across. A screenshot of a text conversation. Natalie's name at the top. Tyler's responses beneath. Dated August 2021. The month Franklin had threatened to sue. The message from Natalie read, "Franklin is panicking. I will call him tomorrow. You handle the paperwork." Tyler's response. "Good. Make sure he understands what happens if he does not back off." I looked up at Deborah. My chest had gone tight. "Natalie came to see me," Deborah said. "Last Thursday. Late afternoon. She called ahead, using a prepaid phone. Said she needed to talk. Off the record. Off the record. She is married to the man who, I know. Hear me out. She did not come to defend him, Eugene. She came to bury him." Deborah sat down, leaned forward. Her expression was the most serious I had seen it since the day I first showed her the footage. She brought the bank statement, the text screenshots, a folder of emails between her and Tyler going back 3 years. And she brought something else. A confession. Verbal. For now. But she is willing to put it on record. What did she confess? That she called Franklin in 2021 and pressured him to drop his complaint. That she proofread a follow-up email Tyler sent to the Reverend after the fake community center fell apart. That she knew Tyler was running scams but told herself they were just aggressive business tactics. That she did not know about her mother until she found the bank statement in Tyler's locked box 6 weeks ago. I stared at the documents on the desk. The text thread. Natalie's words. "I will call him tomorrow." Black and white. Undeniable. "Why?" I said. "Why is she telling you this now?" "Because she is 14 weeks pregnant." The air left my chest. "She found out in May," Deborah continued. "Tyler did not take it well. Then the subpoena arrived. She started researching her own legal exposure. Found the bank statement. Confronted Tyler. His response convinced her. What did he say? She had Alzheimer's anyway. About Marion. I closed my eyes. Heard it in his voice. That flat, dismissive tone. As if my wife's life and mind and money were all expendable, Deborah continued. She contacted me because she wants to protect her child. She does not want to raise a baby with a father in prison and a mother facing conspiracy charges. She wants a deal. What kind of deal? Full testimony against Tyler. Complete disclosure of everything she knows, everything she participated in. In exchange, a plea on accessory after the fact. The prosecutor recommends a suspended sentence, home confinement, probation, no jail time. And the DA is considering this? Deborah nodded. Because without her, we have strong evidence. The video, the bank statements, Franklin, and the Reverend. But Tyler's lawyer will argue each case separately. Isolated incidents, misunderstandings, a family dispute blown out of proportion. Natalie's testimony ties it all together. She can confirm the coordination, the intent, the pattern. She makes the conspiracy charge stick. I sat back. The chair creaked beneath me. I looked at the bank statement, at the text thread, at 3 years of my daughter's complicity laid out on a lawyer's desk. Do you trust her? I asked. Deborah hesitated. I trust that she is scared, and I trust that she loves that baby more than she loves him. She stood on that doorstep, I said. My voice cracked on the last word. She watched him hit me, and she did not move. I know, Deborah said. Her tone softened in a way I had not heard before. I am not asking you to forgive her. I am not asking you to understand her or welcome her back or pretend none of it happened. I am asking you one question. Will you let her testify? Because if she does, we win. Tyler goes to prison. The victims get restitution. And your grandchild does not grow up visiting parents behind bars. My grandchild. The word landed somewhere deep. A place I did not know still existed. A place that had been sealed since Marion died. What happens next? I asked. She meets with the prosecutor tomorrow. If they approve the deal, she agrees to wear a wire. One more conversation with Tyler. On the record, if he admits anything at all, it seals the case. A wire. My daughter wearing a recording device against her husband. Sitting across from him in some cafe, making small talk, while a microphone taped against her skin captured every word. I looked at Marion's photograph in my mind. The hiking trail. The summer smile. What would she say? Would she want Natalie punished? Or would she want her saved? I did not know. Could not know. Marion was gone, and the world she left behind had become something neither of us would recognize. I closed my eyes. Opened them. Looked at Deborah. Do it, I said. She nodded once. Picked up her phone. Then paused. Eugene. One more thing. If this works, if she testifies, he will not know until she walks into that courtroom. It will be a complete surprise. Are you prepared for what that will look like? I thought about Tyler's face when he opened the envelope. The color draining like water from cracked glass. Yes, I said. I am prepared. The recording ran 34 minutes. Deborah played me the last 90 seconds in her office 2 days after it was made. That was all I could bear. She had warned me before pressing play, told me to prepare myself. That what Tyler said on the tape was worse than anything the journal had contained, because this time he was not writing to a confused woman. He was speaking freely, casually, to his wife, whom he still believed was on his side. I told her I was ready. I was not. The audio quality was clear. A cafe. Background noise. The clink of cups. A murmur of other conversations layered beneath two voices I knew better than I wanted to. Natalie's was steady. Controlled. A woman walking a tightrope and refusing to look down. Did Mom ever ask you about the money? Natalie's voice. A pause. Then Tyler, laughing slightly. She asked once, maybe twice. But you know how she was by then. I just told her she had already transferred it. She believed me. Easier than arguing with someone who cannot remember what day it is. I gripped the armrest of my chair. And the books? Natalie again. Her voice was lighter. Conversational. As if they were discussing groceries. The signed ones from the house? Sold them online, Tyler said. She never noticed. And even if she had, she would have thought she misplaced them. That is the thing about people like your mom. Like Franklin. Like the Reverend. They want to trust. They need to believe someone gives a damn about them. All I did was give them what they wanted. A silence. Then Natalie. So they were marks. Of course they were marks. Tyler's voice had dropped into something I recognized. That casual cruelty. That absolute absence of remorse. People like your mom. Like Franklin. Like the old priest. They are all the same. Lonely. Desperate to feel important. I gave them that. A project. A cause. Something to believe in. It is not my fault they could not read the fine print. Natalie's voice, barely above a whisper. Even my mother? Tyler laughed. The sound of it went through me like a blade, especially your mother. She was the easiest one. Had Alzheimer's. Was terrified of being useless. Wanted to help her precious daughter. All I had to do was mention your name, and she opened her checkbook. Did not even need to ask twice. Deborah stopped the recording. The silence in her office was the loudest thing I had ever heard. I sat perfectly still, my hands flat on the armrests, my jaw locked. Behind my ribs, something had caught fire and was burning without oxygen. She was the easiest one. I stood up, walked to the door, opened it, stood in the hallway, with my back against the wall, and my eyes closed and breathed, until I could feel my hands again, until the roaring in my ears faded enough to hear the traffic below. The elevator somewhere, a phone ringing in another office. When I went back in, Deborah was sitting with her hands folded, patient. She did not ask if I was all right. She knew the answer. That recording seals it, she said quietly. His own words, his own admission, on tape. No jury in the world will hear that and let him walk. I nodded. Could not speak yet. Natalie moved out 72 hours before the trial. Deborah arranged everything. Movers came while Tyler was at his lawyer's office. She took her clothes, her laptop, prenatal vitamins, and one thing I did not learn about until much later, Marion's journal. She had found it in Eugene's social media post and asked Ruth to send her a copy. She kept it in her bedside drawer. Tyler did not realize she was gone until that evening. By then, Natalie was in a short-term rental across the county line, registered under her maiden name, Hartwell, the name she had been born with, the name she was reclaiming. He called her 36 times that night. She did not answer. The preliminary hearing happened on a Thursday morning, 6 days before the full trial. Routine. The judge reviewed the motion to delay, which Tyler's lawyer argued with diminishing conviction. Judge Patricia Moreno denied it in under 10 minutes. The video evidence is unambiguous, she said. Media coverage does not change the facts. Trial is set for July 15th. Tyler sat at the defense table in a dark suit, expression neutral. He did not know his wife had left him, did not know she had worn a wire, did not know that in 6 days she would walk through the courtroom doors and end his life as he knew it. I sat in the gallery and watched him adjust his cufflinks, watched him lean over to whisper something to his lawyer, watched him smile at something, the confidence of a man who believed he was smarter than everyone in the room. After the hearing, I stood on the courthouse steps in the July heat. Deborah beside me, briefcase in hand. She is ready, Deborah said. Wednesday afternoon, second day of testimony. The prosecutor will call her as a surprise witness. He will not know until she walks through that door. I looked out at the street. Cars passing. People going about their lives. Will it be enough? I asked. To convict him? Deborah said. Yes. Without question. And to fix my family? She looked at me. Her expression was kind, in a way she rarely allowed. That is not up to me, Eugene. That is not up to any court. I nodded, shoved my hands into my pockets and walked to my car. 6 days. In 6 days, my daughter would stand up in front of 12 strangers and destroy the man she had married, would admit what she had done, would play a recording that would make Tyler Bradshaw's own words the instrument of his undoing. I was not sure if that would be enough. For the victims, for Marion, for me. But it was what we had. 6 days. I could wait 6 more days. The courtroom smelled like furniture polish and recycled air. I had been inside a courthouse exactly once before, to notarize Marion's will the week after her diagnosis. The memory sat in my chest like a stone as I took my seat in the front row. Deborah beside me, her briefcase open, her posture straight and still. Across the aisle, Tyler sat at the defense table. Charcoal suit, white shirt, burgundy tie. His lawyer, Gregory Holt, was older, silver-haired, the kind of man who wore confidence like cologne. They leaned together, whispering. Tyler's expression was calm, relaxed, A man attending a formality he expected to survive. The bailiff called the court to order. 12 jurors filed into the box. 6 men, 6 women, a retired postal worker, a restaurant manager, a graduate student. Ordinary people about to hear an extraordinary story. Deputy District Attorney Lydia Chen rose first. Mid-30s. Dark hair pulled tight. Voice clear as a bell in an empty room. This case, she said, is about a man who used trust as a weapon, who manipulated the people closest to him, who struck his own father-in-law when he refused to hand over money, and who, over the course of 3 years, stole nearly $200,000 from 5 victims, including a woman dying of Alzheimer's disease. She paused. Let the number hang. You will see video evidence. You will hear testimony. You will see a pattern so clear that coincidence becomes impossible. The evidence will speak for itself. Holt rose slowly, buttoned his jacket, smiled at the jury, the way a grandfather smiles at children. My client, he said, is not on trial for being a poor businessman. He is here because his elderly father-in-law is angry, embarrassed, looking for someone to blame for family tensions that existed long before any money changed hands. At the end of this trial, I believe you will see this for what it is. A personal vendetta. Dressed in legal clothing. They played the video first. The courtroom went silent as Chen cued the footage on the monitor. The timestamp. March 14th, 2:47 in the afternoon. My shop door. The familiar shelves. Me behind the counter. Tyler's voice came through the speaker. Distorted slightly by distance, but clear. 35,000. That is all I am asking. My voice. Quieter. I am not giving you anything. Then the sound. A crack that cut through the courtroom, like a branch snapping. My head jerked sideways. Tyler's hand still raised. And there, at the edge of the frame, something small falling from the shelf. The book. Marion's book. Someone in the jury box flinched. A woman in the second row. She covered her mouth with her hand. Chen paused the video. Turned to me. Mr. Hartwell. Is that you on the screen? I stood. Walked to the witness stand. Placed my hand on the Bible and swore to tell the truth. Yes, I said. That is me. She walked me through the afternoon. The demand. The refusal. The blow. I kept my answer short. Factual. Let the video carry the weight. Then Holt approached for cross-examination. He held a printed screenshot. My social media post from June. Mr. Hartwell. You recognize this? Yes. You posted it publicly. Naming my client. Accusing him of theft and fraud. Before any trial. Before any conviction. Yes. He turned to the jury. Is it possible you wanted a confrontation that day in your shop? That you provoked my client deliberately? No. I refused because he had no right to that money. But you did not just refuse. You escalated. You posted online. You involved the press. He made it personal. I said. When he struck me in my own shop, Holt held my gaze for a moment. Then nodded. No further questions. Day 2 brought Franklin to the stand. He walked up in a button-down and khakis, the scar on his forehead visible beneath the fluorescent lights. Chen asked him to recount the 52,000. Franklin spoke steadily. The conference in Atlanta, the fake platform, the mail forwarding address, the shoving in the parking lot. What happened when you threatened legal action? Chen asked. His wife called me, Franklin said. Told me a lawsuit would ruin both of us, that I should let it go. Holt's cross was aggressive. Called it a failed business venture. Suggested Franklin had ignored obvious risks. But Franklin did not waver. I invested in good faith, he said. He lied. Then he hurt me. That is not a dispute. That is fraud. The Reverend testified next. Via video link from his living room, the bookshelf visible behind him. His voice shook, but his story was clear. The brochure, the 30,000, the vacant lot. Marion's name used as a reference. Then Ruth appeared on screen from Florida. She held up the bank statement for the camera. $45,000. Marion's handwriting in the journal. Ruth read the entry aloud. I cannot remember if I already gave Tyler the money. He says I did. Maybe I am confused again. The jury foreman leaned forward in his chair. Chen stood before the jury for her summary of witnesses. She projected a spreadsheet. 5 names. 5 amounts. $197,000 across 3 years. This is not bad luck, she said. This is not misunderstanding. This is a pattern, Holt objected. Called it prejudicial. The judge adjusted her glasses, glanced at the evidence binder, and overruled. Late Wednesday afternoon, the judge called a recess. When court reconvened, Chen stood at her table. Your Honor, the state has one more witness. We will call them tomorrow morning. Holt looked up sharply. We were not notified of any additional witnesses. The witness came forward late in discovery, Chen said smoothly. Defense counsel was notified this morning per protocol. The judge looked at Holt. Counselor? Holt glanced at Tyler. Tyler shrugged. One shoulder. Unconcerned. The gesture of a man who believed he had already weathered the worst. No objection, Holt said. For now, court adjourned. The jury filed out. Some glanced at Tyler. Some at me. I watched them leave and wondered which of them would remember this moment tomorrow. Which of them would recall Tyler's casual shrug when the doors opened and his wife walked through them. Deborah closed her briefcase beside me. Leaned close. Tomorrow, she said. One word. Quiet enough that only I heard it. I nodded. My hands were trembling in my lap. Across the aisle, Tyler stood. Adjusted his tie. Said something to Holt that made the older man chuckle. Then he turned and walked out through the side door. Confident, unhurried. He thought the worst was over. Thought one more witness meant a forensic accountant or a banking expert. Someone boring. Someone technical. He had no idea. Thursday morning arrived with a sky the color of bruised magnolias. I sat in the same front row seat. Deborah beside me. The gallery fuller than before. Reporters. Strangers. Franklin. In row 3. Tyler sat at the defense table in a navy suit. Holt whispering beside him. Tyler almost smiled. He had survived 3 days. One more witness. Nothing that could touch him. The bailiff stood. All rise. Judge Moreno entered. The jury filed in. Chen stood. Your Honor. The state calls its final witness. She turned toward the double doors. They opened. Natalie walked in. The room went silent. She wore a loose gray blouse and dark slacks. Her hair pulled back. And beneath the fabric, the gentle curve of her belly. 14 weeks. My grandchild. Tyler's head snapped toward the doors. His mouth opened. Closed. Holt's pen froze mid-word. Natalie walked down the aisle, eyes forward, hands clasped over her stomach. She did not look at me. Did not look at Tyler. The clerk approached with the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Chen stepped forward. Please state your name. Natalie Marie Hartwell Bradshaw. Your relationship to the defendant? I am his wife. Why are you here today? Natalie raised her head. Because I helped him, and because I cannot let my child grow up in a family built on lies. She told it all. Franklin's phone call. How Tyler asked her to make it go away. The Reverend's email. She proofread. And Marion. I found a bank statement, she said. My mother transferred $45,000 to my husband's company 4 months before she died. I confronted him. He said she offered. Then I found the email about a program that does not exist. I called my school district. There is no record. She looked across the courtroom and found Tyler. He sat rigid, white. Chen held up a digital recorder. Your Honor, the state would like to play a recording made by the witness on July 2nd. Holt objected. Overruled, the judge said. Tyler's voice filled the courtroom. People like your mom, like Franklin, like the old priest. They are all the same. Lonely. Desperate to feel important. Natalie's voice. Even my mother? Tyler laughing. Especially your mother. She was the easiest one. Silence. Absolute. I could hear my heartbeat. Then Tyler stood. His chair scraped backward. His face twisted into something feral. You are nothing, he shouted, pointing at Natalie. You are nothing without me. Bailiff. 2 officers moved. Tyler shoved Holt's hand away. They caught his arms, dragged him backward. You will regret this. You are nothing. Nothing. The side door swallowed him. His voice faded down the hallway. Then silence. Natalie sat with her hands pressed against her belly. Face wet. Shoulders shaking. The judge called recess. I walked to the stand. Natalie looked up. Red eyes. Terrified. I am sorry, she whispered. You did the right thing, I said. Take care of the baby. I turned and walked back to my seat. Friday morning. The foreman stood. On the charge of assault. Guilty. On the charge of fraudulent conduct as part of a pattern. Guilty. Judge Moreno sentenced Tyler to 24 months, 5 years probation, restitution of $180,000, restraining order. 10 years. They cuffed his wrists. He looked at the gallery once. Then they led him through the side door. Natalie's hearing was an hour later. 6 months home confinement. 3 years probation. 200 hours. Community service. You made serious errors, the judge said. But you chose to do the right thing. I waited on the courthouse steps. July. Sun. White. And unforgiving. Natalie stepped out. Saw me. Stopped. She walked toward me. Hands clasped over her belly. I'm sorry, she said. I'm so sorry. I did not walk away. Did not reach for her. Just stood in the sun and nodded. Once. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But something. I drove home alone. Highway flat and gray. Passenger seat empty. Pulled into my driveway. Went inside. Set my keys beside Marion's photograph. Well, I said quietly. We won. The house did not answer. The first weeks of August passed in silence. I did not call Natalie. Did not visit. Did not know how to begin a conversation with someone I had both lost and found in the same courtroom. Instead, I opened the shop every morning at 9. Swept the floor. Brewed coffee. Sold books to strangers who did not know my name or my story. Let the routine carry me the way water carries a leaf. Without direction. Without resistance. Franklin stopped by one afternoon. We sat on the bench outside the shop with iced tea and watched tourists drift along Willow Street. He asked if I had heard from Natalie. Not yet, I said. He nodded. She helped you win. That counts for something. She helped him first, I said. That counts too. He did not argue. Just sat with me in the heat and let the silence be enough. The letter arrived on a Tuesday in mid-September. Handwritten, pale blue stationery. My name in Natalie's careful cursive, the same handwriting she had learned from Marion. Looping. Deliberate. I set it on the kitchen table and stared at it for 2 days before I opened it. Dad, I do not know if you will read this. I do not know if I deserve for you to read it. But I need to say it anyway. I am sorry. For the doorway. For the silence. For every phone call I made on his behalf. For not seeing what was in front of me until it was almost too late. I am having a girl. Due in January. I am not giving her his last name. I am giving her yours. Hartwell. I want her to grow up knowing what that name means. Knowing the man who carried it. Knowing her grandmother through the shop and the books and the stories you will tell her. I love you, Dad. Natalie. I read it 3 times. Then I sat at the kitchen table and let myself cry in a way I had not since the night Marion forgot my name for the last time. I called her on Sunday. Got your letter, I said. I meant every word. She whispered. I know. Silence. Then. You can call me. Whenever you need to. It was not forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a door left open. I visited in October. Her apartment was small. Clean. An ankle monitor visible beneath her pant leg that neither of us mentioned. We assembled a crib together. White wood. Simple. It took 20 minutes and 3 attempts with the Allen wrench before the frame stood upright. Natalie sat back on the floor, wiping her eyes. Mom would have loved this. She would have loved her, I said. Your daughter. We cried together. The first time in 2 years we had shared anything real. In November, I took Marion's 1962 first edition to a book conservator on Abercorn Street. A woman named Helen, who specialized in dust jacket restoration. She examined the tear under magnification and told me it could be repaired. Not perfectly. A faint line would always remain. But the book would be whole again. Readable. Beautiful. I told her to do it. Whatever it cost. December was quiet. I visited Natalie twice a week. Brought groceries. Fixed a leaking faucet. Hung curtains in the nursery. We did not talk about Tyler. Did not talk about the trial. Talked about Marion instead. About the shop. About books Natalie had loved as a child. About the stories I would read to her daughter. Marion Grace Hartwell was born on January 18th at 6:22 in the evening. Natalie called me at 4 in the morning, breathless. Dad. It is time. I drove across Savannah in the dark. Streetlights blurring past. The river catching moonlight through the trees. I made it to the hospital in 11 minutes. Labor was long. I sat in the waiting room for hours. Pacing. Sitting. Pacing again. At 6:30, a nurse called my name. Natalie sat propped against pillows. Exhausted. Radiant. In her arms, wrapped in a pale yellow blanket, was a tiny red-faced girl with dark hair. Marion's hair. Marion's coloring. Dad. Natalie said softly. Meet Marion Grace. She placed her in my arms. She weighed nothing. Weighed everything. Her eyes were closed. Her fists curled tight. And when I looked at her face, I saw it. Marion's cheekbones. Marion's brow. The shape of a woman I had loved for 42 years, beginning again in miniature. Something in my chest that had been locked since the trial cracked open. Not the fury. That had faded months ago. Something else. Something older. And deeper. The part of me that had believed nothing good could come from this much damage. You will grow up with truth, I whispered to her. And love. I promise. Her hand uncurled. Found my finger. Held on. April came quietly to Savannah. Azaleas bloomed along Willow Street the way they did every year. Pink and white. And impossible. The oak trees heavy with new moss. The light turning golden earlier each evening. I sat in the shop on a Thursday afternoon. The restored first edition sat in a glass case beside the register. A faint line across the dust jacket where the tear had been. Visible if you knew to look. Invisible if you did not. Natalie came by with Marion Grace in a carrier. 3 months old now. Dark eyes open. Taking in the shelves, the spines, the dust motes floating in the amber light. Dad, Natalie said. She smiled this morning. A real smile. I looked at my granddaughter. At my daughter. At Marion's photograph on the shelf behind them. The summer hike. The before. We did it, I said quietly to the photograph. They are going to be okay. If you have stayed with me through this story, I want to leave you with this. I am not a man who claims to understand God's plan, but I have come to believe that God does not give us easy answers. He gives us choices, and then He gives us the strength to live with what we choose. I chose to fight. Not because I was brave, because I could not look at my granddaughter and tell her I did nothing. God gave me that conviction when I had nothing else. But every fight costs something. Mine cost me months. I will never get back with my daughter. Moments Marion will never see. God does not promise that justice will feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like ash, and you have to trust that He is building something from those ashes that you cannot yet see. If betrayal has fractured your family, do not do what I did. Do not let fury drive. Seek help. Talk to someone you trust. God puts people in our path for a reason. Deborah, Franklin, even Natalie. In the end, let them in before the glass shatters. Leave a comment below. Has someone you trusted ever broken that trust? How did you find your way back? Subscribe to this channel if stories like these resonate with you. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thank you for staying until the end. The shop is still open. The azaleas are still blooming. And Marion Grace is learning to laugh. Not perfect, but enough.